Welcome. This is our next section. In last week with the algebra basics review was hopefully kind of leading us up to this next chapter or next unit. This is unit 2, and this is chapter 1 in our textbook, solving equations. Some of them start out pretty easy, pretty basic, not too bad, stuff you've maybe seen before. I'm hoping that it starts out as a review and then gets a little bit more challenging, a little bit more difficult. There are situations in the future where we will model real world situations with an equation and a variable, and being able to figure stuff out using a variable to problem solve and figure stuff out. But also, we also have to be able to figure out the procedural side of solving equations, where it's a step-by-step process of eliminating things in order to figure out what that variable equals. We've actually been solving equations probably since, who knows, elementary school sometime. So if you saw a problem that looked kind of like this, where it's like, ooh, box plus 3 equals 5. That's sort of like a variable. It's an unknown quantity. Right there, we can see what goes in that box is 2, because 2 plus 3 is 5. That's not a whole lot different than what we're doing here. We're trying to figure out what that unknown value is, but it gets more complicated with negatives and decimals and fractions and things like that sometimes. And so if I was to look at this first example right here, it says x minus 3 equals negative 5. All right, so we describe two sides of our equation, and two sides of the equation can be separated by sort of this equal sign in the middle right there. You can see that equal sign is separating what we're doing. On one side, it should equal the other side. All right, and so we tend to go to the side that has the variable, and then we try to get that variable all by itself. We call that process of undoing things, or inverse operations, in order to isolate the variable. So lots of different vocabulary that we use there, but essentially what we're doing is, if this is minus 3, the opposite of minus 3 is add 3. Not only to one side, but you must do it to both sides of the equal sign. All right. So for right here, we're going to go add 3 both sides. And this is the arithmetic on this is negative 3 and plus 3 put together equals 0. Well, I don't end up writing down 0. Instead, I just cross it out right like that. Okay. So then I drop down x and then equals. And right here, I do this arithmetic, and it's negative 5 plus 3, and I get negative 2. Okay, so essentially at the end, I have x equals negative 2. So my answer here is x equals negative 2. I put a box around it. That's my final answer. But just to guarantee that this is correct, just to guarantee that this is exactly the right answer, it says right here, check your answer. If it says to do that, then I expect that you are going to show your work in a check in your answer type of way. So if x equals negative 2, then in order to check your answer, you rewrite the original equation is x minus 3 equals negative 5. And then what you're going to do is you're going to take that negative 2 and plug it in, substitute it in to the x location, and rewrite it. And so it'd be negative 2 minus 3 equals negative 5. And what you're doing is you're checking to make sure that this is actually going to be a true statement, that this side does equal the other side. And so this actually turns into negative 5 equals negative 5, right? Like that. And is that true? Yes. And so this checks out. And so we can put a big check mark and say, yep, I guarantee that the answer of negative 2 is correct. Now, in this case, I think we could probably say that it is with confidence, but as they get more challenging and more involved, then checking your answer will be a very crucial step in just making sure that it's the right answer. Okay, so next here, let's do this other problem. We've got problem B, or the second one that we're going to do here, just has some decimals, and the variable tends to be on the opposite side of our, and so if I was to think about the two sides of of our equal sign. They're kind of separated down like that. I like to organize myself by saying, okay, everything on this side should equal everything on the other side. And so we do inverse operations on the two sides of our equation. So this one is going to be minus 2.8 because it's positive. So I do the opposite of plus 2.8, which is going to turn into 0 on that side. Whatever I do to one side, I must do to the other side. So I like to draw a straight line underneath. Notice all the steps I'm taking to stay organized, and it just flows down the paper. And then I rewrite this little line underneath just to keep myself organized. Now 2.8 minus 2.8 turns into 0, but I don't write that down. Instead, I just cross them out. And they go away on that side. And what is left is y equals, and we put these together and, use your calculator. But really it's negative 1.9, I believe. I'll double check real quick. Yep, negative 1.9. Okay, so we have to check our answer, put a box around it. That is our answer, but we want to check it, make sure that it's actually correct. And so we rewrite the original 0.9 equals y plus 2.8. That's my original. Okay, so I'm going to then plug in this value goes into the y location. So then it goes 0.9 equals negative 1.9 plus 2.8. Okay, so I check my work, I crunch the arithmetic on that, and it ends up being 0.9 equals, and it will be a subtraction really between these two. So it's 2.8 minus 1.9, and you do get 0.9 as your final answer. And yes, it checks out. So this is my correct answer. Y equals negative 1.9.